Hi, my name is Andrew Huberman. I'm a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine. My lab studies brain function, behavior, and how our nervous system can be modified through experience, behavior, and various forms of training. I'm particularly interested in how we can apply science, particularly neuroscience and physiology, to improve mental and physical performance, health, and overall well-being. Today, I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to activate you, because winners aren't fueled by motivation. They're engineered by systems. Winning isn't luck, it's biology, it's behavior, it's strategy. Let's talk about the 7 secrets of winners that can turn these secrets into your reality. 1. Winners control their state, not just their schedule. They don't just plan their day. They prepare their nervous system. They know that high performance is not a mindset alone, but a physiological state. Breath, posture, and light exposure are tools, not trends. 2. Winners embrace boredom. They don't chase dopamine all day. They delay gratification. Winners sit in silence, endure the grind, and still execute with precision. Why? Because neuroplasticity favors consistency over excitement. 3. Winners train under pressure. They simulate adversity on purpose. When stress hits, their nervous system doesn't collapse, it adapts. They've practiced discomfort. They've forged resilience, not wished for it. 4. Winners focus like a laser, not a floodlight. Distraction is cheap. Deep work is expensive. Winners create friction between themselves and their temptations. Focus isn't a talent, it's a skill you train by removing options. 5. Winners rest like it's a ritual. They don't burn out. They cycle energy. Winners use sleep as a performance tool. They know REM sleep is where emotional resilience is rebuilt, and non-REM is where skills get consolidated. 6. Winners use vision to drive action, and I don't mean big dreams. I mean literal vision. Gaze affects brain state. Winners know when you narrow your field of view, you signal your brain it's time to act. Eyes lead, behavior follows. 7. Winners have systems, not just goals. They don't rise to the level of their ambition. They fall to the level of their protocol, morning routines, focus blocks, recovery windows. Winners make success inevitable by removing choice from key actions. Winners are body first, not just mind. First, here's something counterintuitive. Most people try to think their way into action. But winners, they act their way into clarity. The nervous system is bottom-up driven far more than it is top-down regulated, meaning how your body is physically activated or dysregulated has a profound impact on your cognitive processes. If your body is tired, your thoughts will be distorted. If your posture is collapsed, your self-perception becomes negative. If your breath is shallow, your mind perceives threat. Winners reverse. Engineer performance by targeting the body first. Want to feel motivated? Fix your body chemistry. Move before you think. Breathe before you decide. Sit upright before you speak. Behavior is not the result of your mind. Your mind is often the result of your behavior. Stress is not the enemy. Directed stress is. Here's a fundamental truth. You need stress. Stress is what drives adaptation. The winners use it like a weight in the gym. They understand that to grow, they must expose themselves to increasingly challenging environments, but do so with control. This principle is called hormetic stress. When applied properly, stress makes you stronger. Cold showers, sauna use, fasted training, focused work under tight constraints. These are all examples of hormesis. But here's the catch. Too much stress without recovery, you burn out. Too little stress, you stagnate. The right stress plus strategic recovery equals progress. Winners don't avoid stress, they aim it. They use stress as a feedback loop. Heart rate variability, resting heart rate, sleep quality, all are tracked, not obsessively but strategically, because stress is not a feeling, it's a signal. Neurochemistry of discipline. What winners get right. Let's talk dopamine, not as a buzzword, but as a fundamental lever of your motivation and focus. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It's the molecule of pursuit. Every time you experience anticipation of reward, you get a surge of dopamine. That dopamine drives focus, effort, energy. But here's where most people go wrong. They spike dopamine with easy hits: social media, constant checking, video clips, junk food. The brain then builds tolerance, meaning your baseline dopamine drops. Result: life becomes dull, discipline becomes harder. Winners master their dopamine system. They delay gratification to preserve sensitivity. They celebrate effort, not just outcomes. They restrict dopaminergic junk food, like phone scrolling, and use reward scheduling strategically. Here's a simple neurochemical truth: the harder the effort, the greater the dopamine after success. This is why winners don't need to feel motivated to act. They act and let the reward follow. They're playing the long arc of dopamine, not the short spike. Time perception. The winner's competitive advantage, one overlooked aspect of high performers, is their relationship to time. Winners experience time differently. That's not philosophy, that's neurobiology. When you're highly focused, deeply engaged in effort, or in a high-stakes situation, the brain shifts how it encodes time. Norepinephrine, dopamine, and acetylcholine flood into key regions like the prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex, tightening your perception of the present. What does that mean practically? You can get more done in 90 minutes of deep focus than most do in an entire distracted day. You experience flow. You stretch your productive time, and not by working longer, but by being present longer. Winners train this by using full visual focus, narrowing their visual field, working in distraction-free zones, practicing meditation or focused attention training. They don't just manage time, they neurologically manipulate it. Identity is a feedback loop. Winners program themselves daily. Identity is not fixed, it's a loop. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are, and your nervous system pays close attention to evidence, not intentions. Winners install identity through repeated action. Every day is a chance to cast a vote. Want to become focused? Focus for 10 minutes today. Want to become disciplined? Delay gratification just once. Want to become courageous? Take the smallest possible risk. The nervous system adapts based on repeated experience, not abstract goals. Winners don't wait to feel like winners. They create an evidence trail that convinces their brain, this is who I am now. Tools of winners. Behavioral science meets neurobiology. Let's go deeper into the actual tools high performers use, many backed by peer-reviewed data and all simple enough to be applied today. 1. Visual anchoring. When under stress, your field of vision expands peripheral activation. This signals threat. To regain control, narrow your visual field by fixating on a single point, e.g., a dot on the wall or horizon. Within 30 seconds, you downshift from sympathetic activation to parasympathetic recovery. 2. Cognitive load breaks after 90 minutes of deep work. Perform what's called a nonce, leap deep rest, NSDR protocol, lie down, eyes closed, zero stimulation, focus on breath, 10-20 minutes. This promotes dopamine replenishment and enhances memory consolidation, akin to a nap, but neurologically more efficient. 3. Behavioral contingencies. Winners often use something known as reward bundling. They pair a necessary task, e.g., writing, training, preparing with a delayed reward. Example, no coffee until 20 minutes of deep work is complete. This builds discipline while avoiding addiction to external motivators. 4. Internal reward activation. You can train your brain to release dopamine internally by focusing on the effort itself. After a workout, say, I'm proud of the effort, not the result. This neurochemically shifts dopamine release away from the outcome and toward the process. Sleep. The foundation winners protect relentlessly. If there is one area where average and elite performers diverge sharply, it's in how they view sleep. Average, sleep is a recovery tool. Elite, sleep is a performance amplifier. When you sleep, your brain doesn't turn off. It rewires. In non-REM, it prunes unused synapses and consolidates procedural memory. In REM, it integrates emotional information and problem solves creatively. Winners design their life around sleep, not the other way around. They follow consistent circadian anchors, wake at the same time every day, even on weekends, use sunlight or artificial blue light in the morning, avoid bright light, especially overhead LED and screens after 8 p.m. Keep room cool around 65 degrees F or 18 degrees C, dark and quiet. Eat the last meal 3-4 hours before bed. Sleep is not passive recovery, it's neural recalibration. Mental toughness is physical capacity. Mental toughness isn't just mindset, it's biochemical. What most people call willpower is often a reflection of physical fatigue, low glucose availability, or dopaminergic depletion. Winners monitor nutrition. Stable glucose equals stable focus. Hydration. Even 1% dehydration impairs cognition. Electrolytes, sodium and magnesium, modulate neural firing. They know if the system is underfueled, no amount of mindset tricks will compensate. Mental toughness is built by consistently training the physical body to sustain high output under pressure, especially in conditions of fatigue. This is why elite military operators, endurance athletes, and surgeons train under sleep-deprived, high-stress scenarios. They're not training their mind alone. They're calibrating their biology. Winners anticipate emotional contingencies. Anticipation is a winner's edge. They mentally rehearse negative scenarios. Why? Not because they're pessimists, but because they're proactive realists. This process is known in psychology as premortem visualization. Athletes call it visualizing adversity. Strategists call it contingency mapping. Your amygdala, the brain's emotional processing hub, activates whether a stressor is real or imagined. That means by simulating a potential failure and visualizing your response, you inoculate your brain against panic. Winners don't just ask, "What will I do if I win?" They ask, "What will I do when it gets hard, when I want to quit, when I doubt myself?" This builds certainty, and certainty kills anxiety. The power of repetition. Neural pathways are formed, not found. The nervous system is an associative prediction engine. Every time you repeat an action, you strengthen a neural circuit. Habits aren't formed by desire, they're forged by synaptic repetition. Focus isn't built by motivation, it's built by myelination of relevant neural pathways. Resilience isn't genetic, it's a trained neurological tolerance to pressure. Repetition with intention leads to rewiring. This is why the top 1% don't seek novelty all the time. They master boredom. They return to basics again and again, because mastery is not about learning more, but about executing the fundamentals under stress. Decision fatigue, the invisible killer of high potential. Every decision you make, what to eat, what to wear, when to work, where to focus, costs cognitive energy. The prefrontal cortex has limited fuel. Winners eliminate unnecessary decisions through automation and rituals. They wear similar clothing. They eat the same breakfast. They use fixed schedules for focus blocks. They reserve decision-making energy for high-leverage choices, not trivial ones. This protects their executive function and prevents burnout. You're not weak when you lose willpower by the end of the day. You're depleted. Winners design systems that preserve cognitive firepower for what really matters. One of the least discussed but most powerful levers in performance is environmental design. Winners are intentional with their surroundings, not because they are obsessive, but because they understand one truth: your environment doesn't just influence you, it programs you. Visual clutter increases cognitive load. Noise increases stress hormones like cortisol. Temperature affects dopamine availability. Even room colors and smells can alter brain states. High performers curate their surroundings to reduce cognitive drag and increase intentionality. They build trigger-rich zones. Work happens in one place, rest in another, movement in another. This creates neural associations that accelerate state transitions. Low-friction environments, tools are visible. Distractions are invisible. Example, A winner never keeps their phone on the desk during deep work. Sensory, aligned settings, soft, indirect lighting during wind-down hours, bright, natural light for focus periods. This setup matches the goal. Their spaces are functional, not aesthetic first, but neurologically optimized. Goal stacking. How winners set up automatic momentum. Most people set goals vertically. Do this, then that. Winners set them horizontally. They stack behaviors so that one action leads naturally into the next. This taps into a principle called habit chaining or goal architecture. Example: wake up, hydrate, sunlight in eyes, 5 minutes of movement, cold exposure, deep work. Each action is a trigger for the next. This removes the need for willpower or decision making. Stacking creates momentum, and momentum creates belief. Importantly, every micro win along the chain releases dopamine, which increases the likelihood of repeating the entire sequence the next day. This is self-reinforcing, emotional regulation, the performance multiplier at the elite level. It's not intelligence or skill that separates the best. It's the ability to remain composed under pressure. This isn't personality, it's neuroregulation. Winners train their emotional response the same way others train muscles. They use breath to control the vagus nerve, the switch between stress and calm. They use posture and gaze to override negative self-perception. They learn to observe thoughts, not become them. A tactical protocol used in elite training environments is interoception training, becoming aware of internal sensations, heart rate, tension, breathing pattern. This rewires the insula and anterior cingulate, making emotional triggers feel less overwhelming and more manageable. This creates a brain-body loop that favors rational decision-making under duress. Internal language. Winners program their inner world. There's no difference between a thought and a biochemical signal. Every internal dialogue either primes you for action or paralysis. Winners don't just think differently, they speak to themselves with neurological precision. They avoid absolutes, not "I always fail," but "this didn't go as expected yet." They avoid identity traps, not "I'm lazy," but "my energy is low, let me reset." They use future-oriented framing, "I'm becoming someone who shows up no matter what." The prefrontal cortex interprets these statements and signals downstream systems, like the amygdala and hippocampus. Accordingly, language is a form of neurochemical instruction. Winners edit their self, to control their biology. Attention as a currency, the scarcity advantage in today's world. Attention is the rarest and most exploited resource. Winners treat it like currency. They protect it aggressively. They are not multitasking. They are serial single-tasking. This is not semantics. It's functional biology. Multitasking fractures the prefrontal cortex. It reduces working memory. It increases error rate. Winners train monofocus, one task. One window, one intention. Cognitive ramp-up. They allow 5-7 minutes for the brain to enter the task without switching. Flow protection. Phones on airplane mode, browsers with blocker apps, physical spaces devoid of randomness. Every time you switch tasks, your brain pays a metabolic price, mostly in the form of glucose and acetylcholine depletion. Focus is not about discipline, it's about protecting the resources that enable deep cognition. Winners track lagging indicators, not just leading goals. Most people track steps, calories, hours worked, leading indicators. Winners obsess over lagging indicators, mood variability, stress resilience, task completion rate, sleep quality, decision fatigue. Why? Because outcomes lag behind behaviors and behaviors lag behind internal conditions. They understand that a bad workout isn't random, it's preceded by poor recovery. Low creativity isn't a mindset problem. It's often tied to disrupted sleep cycles or overstimulation. Irritability isn't personality, it's often biochemical, like glucose drops or hormonal dysregulation. Winners are data-aware, not data-obsessed. They track enough to calibrate, but not so much that they become slaves to metrics. High stress equals high protocol in HEIS takes moments, presentations, competitions, negotiations. The average person tries to wing it. The elite go back to protocol. They don't rise to the occasion. They fall to the level of what's been installed in their nervous system. Pre-performance routines are precise. Breathwork, 1-3 rounds of physiological sigh double inhale, long exhale, vision narrowing, fixation on a distant point to sharpen focus, micro movement, stimulate proprioception to prime the brain for action. Anchoring phrase, a repeated statement like calm is control to signal confidence. These rituals stabilize the autonomic nervous system and suppress panic signals. It's not superstition, it's neural conditioning. Recovery, as a competitive skill, what happens in the space between intense efforts, is what determines the outcome of future efforts. Winners train recovery as a skill, not a luxury. They rotate recovery methods based on stress type, physical fatigue, sleep, cold therapy, active recovery. Cognitive fatigue, NSDR, meditation, nature exposure. Emotional fatigue, journaling, coaching, deep conversations. They cycle intensity with intent, work hard to load supercompensate. This is the same model used in Olympic strength training, and it applies to life, business, and leadership. Most people plateau not because they don't push hard enough, but because they don't pull back strategically. Winners play the infinite game at a biological level. We're wired for short-term wins, immediate dopamine, safety, avoidance of threat. Winners override this by consciously expanding their time horizon. They ask, will this still matter in 10 years? Does this behavior compound or decay over time? Is this choice aligned with the future identity I'm building? This is what shifts behavior from reactive to intentional. Neurons that fire together, wire together. When you repeatedly act in service of a long-term identity, you reinforce that neural pathway. You begin to see effort, failure, delay, not as obstacles, but as proof that you're on the right path. Auditory input and brain state modulation, even sound, is a tool. Winners use binaural beats, white noise, or low-frequency ambient music during focused work to modulate cortical activity, for example, 40 Hz gamma waves during deep focus, 10 Hz alpha waves for creative flow, white or pink noise during writing or reading to cancel background distraction. This is neural entrainment using rhythmic input to synchronize brainwaves with desired states. It's not hype. It's backed by EEG data and used in neurofeedback labs. Just as you would use a specific fuel for a race car, you use the right auditory frequency for the mental task at hand. The inner scoreboard, where true winners compete finally and perhaps most subtly, is this. Winners compete against internal standards, not external metrics. Their scoreboard is invisible to everyone but themselves. They ask, did I do what I said I would? Did I stay calm under pressure? Did I execute with integrity, even when no one was watching? This creates neural integrity, a state in which your behavior aligns with your values. This is deeply calming to the brain. It reduces internal conflict. It builds self-trust. When your nervous system knows that you will follow through, it stops sending threat signals, and that, ultimately, is the real edge. Winners do not wait to feel ready, they act. They know readiness is a myth, a neurological illusion. The brain evolved to detect uncertainty and avoid risk, so the natural response to challenge is hesitation. But winners bypass the emotional gatekeeper and train themselves to move before the mind can sabotage them. This is not recklessness, it's a calibrated override of the limbic system. Action itself is the signal to the brain that safety is being expanded, not threatened. Each microaction is a message to the nervous system. We move forward even in doubt. They know fear is a false signal. Physiologically, fear and excitement are nearly identical. Elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, increased glucose mobilization. The interpretation changes everything. Winners reframe fear as readiness. They use cognitive labeling, a process where you consciously rename your emotion to reduce limbic overload. Before a big event, instead of "I'm nervous," they say "I'm ready." This doesn't deny reality. It instructs the brain to respond with strength, not withdrawal. Winners understand that adaptation happens on the edge of discomfort. They place themselves at the edge of chaos, not in panic, but in challenge. This is where the nervous system learns fastest. This is called the optimal zone of arousal. Just enough stress to drive neuroplasticity, but not so much that it paralyzes action. This is how skills are encoded, how resilience is earned. They live where others escape from, just outside the comfort zone, but never into chaos. They titrate challenge like a chemist controls exposure, strategically, regularly, with precise intensity. Every part of the system adapts to what it's repeatedly exposed to. Cold exposure isn't just physical hardening, it's neurochemical training. When the body is immersed in discomfort and the breath is controlled, the brain rewires its response to threat. Stress becomes stimulation. Winners stack these exposures: fasted training, cold therapy, time, restricted eating, deep work with no distraction. Each one a rep. Each one a resignal to the brain: we operate under pressure. They train consistency under pressure. Not bursts of brilliance, but reliable execution. It's not about peak performance once. It's about sustainable output. The nervous system loves predictability, so winners ritualize everything: wake time, work blocks, recovery windows, pre-sleep wind, downs. Not because they're rigid, but because it removes uncertainty from the system. When the system feels safe, it performs. When it's guessing, it hesitates. They don't trust motivation, they trust structure. Winners understand that dopamine is unreliable if left unmanaged. It must be directed. They restrict it early in the day. No immediate hits, no phone in bed, no instant sugar. They build it with movement, breath, hydration, light. Dopamine builds slowly, steadily, and they ride that wave into focus. They don't chase peak states. They design baseline upgrades. A high baseline of dopamine means life is more enjoyable, focus is easier, discipline feels natural. This takes weeks to build, but winners play the long game. Their perception of time is unique. When deep in work, time dilates. This isn't philosophical, it's neurological. Focus tightens the temporal window. In flow, minutes feel like seconds. This is achieved through intense monotasking, often with rituals, visual narrowing, minimal distractions, auditory tuning. The locus coeruleus, which releases norepinephrine, activates sharply in this mode, increasing alertness and focus. Winners don't wait for flow, they create conditions for it: repetition, rhythm, minimal tasks, witching, and full body immersion. They value friction, they seek it out, because friction is the sign that something is working. If a workout is too easy, it's not building strength. If a conversation is too comfortable, it's not revealing truth. If work feels too smooth, it might be shallow. Winners don't resist friction, they use it as feedback. It tells them where the growth is. In neuroscience, this aligns with the concept of prediction, error where the brain's expectations don't match reality. Learning occurs. Friction is error, error is adaptation. No friction, no signal. Winners do not confuse intensity with mastery. They don't rely on emotional spikes to drive effort. They build systems. Systems are behaviors that remove reliance on willpower. One behavior triggers another: meditation after movement, journaling before sleep, focus work after hydration and light exposure. These aren't habits, they are neural conditioning loops done daily. They become identity-level drivers. When you no longer think about doing it, the behavior is encoded. This is where discipline becomes default. They treat their mind like a physical organ, because it is. They feed it like an athlete feeds muscle. Omega-3s, B vitamins, clean proteins, glucose management, not just for weight, but for cognition. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and focus, is glucose. Hungry, winners manage inputs. Junk food is junk signal. Too much caffeine too late disrupts sleep, destroys recovery. Winners reverse engineer mental clarity from the inside out. They're not chasing hacks, they're managing biology. When they feel overwhelmed, they know what to do. Breath, the fastest way to change state is via the diaphragm. The vagus nerve connects breath to brain, slow inhales, slower exhales, downshift the nervous system in minutes, 2 quick inhales, 1 long exhale. Physiological sight presses carbon dioxide and calms the heart rate. These are not tricks, these are biological tools. Winners know their tools. They practice in calm so they can perform under fire. They design their sleep like a professional designs performance. Sleep is not downtime. It's neurosculpting. Non-REM cleanses the brain. REM integrates emotion and creativity. Winners use consistent anchors, wake time fixed, light in the eyes early, no caffeine late, low light at night. Sleep environment optimized, cold, dark, silent, no alcohol, no food late, every detail aligned, because poor sleep is poor cognition, poor decision making, poor emotion regulation. Winners don't gamble with sleep. They protect it like treasure. They control inputs. The average brain is overwhelmed by information. News, noise, commentary. Winners curate. They limit digital stimulus. They schedule silence. They consume books slowly, not in bulk. Not for volume, but for absorption. They seek wisdom, not novelty. They revisit what works. They study long. Dead thinkers and living exemplars. The brain forms beliefs by repetition. They repeat what matters. Noise is stimulus. Signal is rare. They pursue signal when setbacks happen. And they always do. Winners don't interpret them as failure. They understand emotional lag. The brain resists change. Neural pathways resist new patterns. Failure is simply evidence that the pattern is incomplete. They respond with curiosity, not judgment. They analyze what broke. Was it behavior, environment, energy, structure? They fix one variable and test again. This is scientific self-development. Inputs, outputs, iteration. Winners are their own lab. They know the difference between tired and depleted. Tired can be solved by sleep. Depleted requires restoration. Nature, laughter, silence, relationships. Winners don't wait to burn out. They track depletion early. They pull back with purpose. They deload before they crash. Because recovery isn't absence of work, it's an investment in future performance. The nervous system, like a battery, must be recharged deliberately. They do so unapologetically. They carry themselves differently, not out of ego, but out of neural alignment. Shoulders back, eyes forward, breath low. This posture activates the confident brain. It's feedback to the system. We are ready, we are safe, we are alert. Winners use posture and movement to rewire state. The body leads the mind. They move with rhythm and strength. Because when your gait is powerful, your thoughts follow. They surround themselves with tension, not chaos, but challenge, people who sharpen them, environments that test them. They embrace discomfort because they've learned that tension precedes transformation. Their relationships are honest. Their feedback is blunt. Their circles are small but charged. Because mediocrity is contagious, so is excellence. They choose the latter, their world. U is simple, forward motion. One action, one effort, one signal at a time. They do not seek balance. They seek alignment. Energy goes where action needs it. They prioritize recovery when it's time, push when it's called for, reflect when it's needed. No drama, just direction, always forward, always aware. So, what truly separates winners isn't luck, talent, or perfect conditions. It's the daily choice to act before they feel ready, to train systems over moods, to direct their biology with intention, to design their environment, guard their attention, regulate their state, and repeat the behaviors that build identity, not once, but relentlessly. Winners don't rise to the moment. They fall back on what's been hardwired, and that wiring, it's available to anyone willing to build it, rep by rep, protocol by protocol, day by day. The work is not easy, but it's simple. Control what you can. Train what you must. Repeat what works. That's not motivation. That's the method, and that's the edge.